everybody. Welcome back to the Tackling Basketball Podcast. My name is Evan.
My name is Jonathan.
I'm Micah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a busy agenda for you here today, so we're going to jump right into it, of course, with Toast and Roast. Micah, start us off.
I'm toasting the Indiana Fever for doing nothing but being bad the last couple of years. In being bad. Last year, they got Aaliyah Boston, who won Rookie of the Year in 2023. Mm-hmm. Very, very good forward. And then with Caitlin Clark recently announcing that she's committing to the WNBA draft, and they have the first overall pick. They're getting Caitlin Clark. And already, since she announced, their ticket prices has doubled, which is kind of crazy. Again, don't really know why I'm toasting them. They didn't do anything. They just got really lucky. But, I mean, this is great for the Fever, is great for the WNBA. More than anything, what the WNBA needs is someone who can just put people in seats. And that's what she did her entire college career. And that's what she's going to do for Indiana and any team that they travel to. So this is going to be huge for the WNBA. Great for the Fever. And also, yeah, shout out Caitlin Clark, officially passing Pete Maravich for leading scorer all-time NCAA.
Yeah.
Unbelievably good.
I so badly want her to pull an Eli Manning and just say she refuses to play for Indiana. Not because...
Why would she do that, though?
Just for the memes. I will say it is great for the Indiana Fever because I think what sucks for Indiana is that they're in Indiana. You know, they're not the New York Liberty. They're not the Mercury in Phoenix. Like, they don't have that big city vibe to truly pull people in. But Caitlin Clark has shown playing for Iowa that she is fully capable of making a Midwestern team relevant and bringing those crowds in. So that's going to be awesome. And like you said, good for the WNBA. I can't wait for Sabrina Ionescu versus Caitlin Clark matchups. Oh. And then I hope Paige Buchers, when she goes to the WNBA, goes to a different team as well. Because those three against each other all the time would be fantastic.
Yeah. Also, Pacers fans are pretty cool. I imagine the fan bases overlap quite a bit, seeing as Indiana, you know. So I'm happy that she's going there and pretty excited. If I still haven't picked my official WNBA team, but they might stand a chance at like winning my fandom. So
I'm just waiting for either Portland or Denver to get a team. Whichever city gets a team first, I'll
oh man.
Yeah, the closest Portland has is Sabrina Ionescu just going to Oregon.
Yeah,
so
I'm kind of a Liberty fan just because of that.
That's where I am. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, over to you.
All right. So I'm going to be toasting the Ruin Your Night Nuggets. So last Saturday we saw LeBron was 9 points away from hitting 40,000 all time, which he's the first player to ever do. And they were set to play against the Denver Nuggets. Up 7 in the second quarter, he reached that mark, and then they quickly piled on an 11-point lead, hoping to celebrate the night with a win. But the Never Say Die Nuggets are no strangers to being down double digits. They've overcome it in 3 of their last 4 games, including that night against LeBron. And now this wouldn't really be like a noteworthy thing to do to they spoiled LeBron's 40K night. The bigger news, obviously, LeBron hit 40K, huge side toast to him. But this isn't the first time they've done that. It's not the first time they've done it this season. It's not the first time they've done it this season to the Lakers. It's kind of been a rough season for Lakers fans in this Lakers-Nuggets rivalry, where it started out opening night. AD and Austin Reeves were quoted as saying that they had circled opening night, that it would be their big revenge game, where they would prove that they shouldn't have been swept in the playoffs. They met Denver in that game and got destroyed. Later in the year, the league scheduled Denver in Los Angeles for the night that Kobe's statue would be revealed at the stadium. And again, Denver came away with a crushing victory. You see Jamal Murray came out right after the game and almost kind of took pity on them, almost begged the league to help them out a little bit, because the Nuggets aren't going to let go. They're not going to like give them one of these nights. He was quoted as saying, "It's weird. Every time there's some night in LA, we've got to play them. Like the first game of the season, revenge game, we play them. Mamba night, we play them. LeBron night, we play them. It's like, man, give them somebody else." And I think that's it's so crushing to Lakers fans. And it's about damn time too. I've been on the other end of this rivalry for like my entire life. People who are older than me who are Nuggets fans for their entire lives as well. But it was just a little nice to give some back. And also at the same time, just beyond ruining your night, the Nuggets have done really well since the All-Star break. They're perfect since the All-Star break, 6-0. Their last 4 games against Golden State, Sacramento, Miami, and Los Angeles, 4 pretty talented teams. They've now won their last 7 against Golden State and their last 8 against the Lakers. And it all started with a text that Jokic shot out right after All-Star break to his teammates saying, "Look, guys, wake up. It's time to be better. I want to go on parade again." So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was questioning, in the last episode, I was questioning their drive and how much they wanted seeding in this regular season. And since the All-Star break, they've shown that they are the same team that they were last year. And yeah, they're looking great. Hard to be mad at any of that.
Man, they might almost be better. Michael Porter Jr. has become a new man in these last 6 games. Just almost perfect from the field. I think he's on something like 80% true shooting in the last 6 games, averaging over 20 points a night, 4 assists in the last game. Come on.
Nuggets fans are like, wait, he knows how to do that? So I will say it took me way too long to realize that this photo of the guys on the Maury set was an edited photo. For the longest time, I didn't read the Maury thing for a long time, so I thought it was just them sitting in an interview, and I was like, why do they all look photoshopped? All right, for my toast, slow week, but I'm going with Trace Thompson, the brother of Klay Thompson, professional basketball player. Might have heard of him. Trace Thompson, he's been with the Dodgers for the past few seasons. Picked up by the Mets this year as kind of a spring training roster ad, a guy to kind of compete for the DH position on the team. And he has been raking at spring training. Currently leads the Mets in home runs, RBIs, hits, total bases, and on-base percentage. He was at risk of being cut or sent to the minor leagues going into spring training. Most people didn't think that he would make the opening day roster for the Mets, but now most Mets fans are calling for him to be on that roster and maybe even be the starting DH for the Mets, which is absolutely absurd. So I guess the rule of the universe is that both Thompson brothers can't be good at the same time. One has to be bad and the other for the other to be good. And Klay has sputtered out. So now it's Trace's turn. So attaboy Trace, I hope he makes the roster just because it'd be kind of fun to have him be a part of it because the Mets don't have a whole lot else going on for him. So, all right. Micah, for your roast.
I will be roasting the Brooklyn Nets, who, after starting their season, their first 30 games, going 15-15, which is about what I was expecting from the Nets. Have a lot of talent. They were looking good last season after those trades. Mikal Bridges is awesome. Claxton's really good. Cam Thomas started out incredible. Still is looking really, really good for a player his youth actually getting to step up. But since then, have gone 9-21. And not only 9-21, they're on a 2-game win streak. When I pulled their stats a week ago, it was even worse. Before those 2 wins, they were tied with the Spurs and Pistons over their last 26 games and were only better than the Wizards, who are also on a 14-game losing streak right now. Also, roast them. Come on.
Wow. Yeah.
If we saw the single season losing streak record broken twice in the same year,
I want it so bad. Like, the Wizards' upcoming schedule is pretty soft. They've got like Charlotte a couple times, but even Charlotte's been kind of looking nice. But yeah, I think it would be so funny to have that record broken. That's all I want.
Especially with what is it? The game to beat the record would be against Detroit.
Yeah.
Or would that be to tie it?
No, that would be to reset the record, as if the Pistons would have to down the Wizards for the record to get
That's
reset.
amazing.
It would be glorious.
Oh, man. But anyway, yeah. Roast the Nets. Not much more to talk about, but they've been super bad. So shame on you.
The last little dig in there. Shame on you, Brooklyn. All right, Jonathan, over to you for some NFL talk.
Yeah, so we got a couple of rules proposals making their way through the pipeline recently in the NFL. And there is included among them a new kickoff rule proposal because there seems to always be one, although this one is sort of gaining some traction and is in its early stages, seems likely to be approved by the owners. Effectively, the main thing that this rule will do is require teams to announce when they are going to make an onside kick attempt, and they are disallowed from attempting one if they do not announce it. It does give kicking teams a slight concession in that if they announce the attempt, they can stack 6 men on the strong side, which is a privilege that was revoked a few years back. Now, the obvious hope here is that it brings a little bit of excitement back to kickoffs, because if teams know that a kick will not be onside, they're going to like set up their blocking formations a little bit deeper. They're going to plan more for the return. But yeah, it's yet to be seen whether or not that will actually be the product of this rule. This season, we saw 5% of onside kick attempts were successful, and 20% of kickoffs were returned. Ideally, if this rule were successful, it would change both of these numbers, although that's yet to be seen. There were a lot of not expected, sort of the surprise onside kick attempts last year. And so if we're reducing the number of those, then I think that we're going to probably reduce a little bit of the excitement in the kickoff. And if you put it through the back of the end zone, it's not going to change how frequently it's returned. So my huge problem here is just what I don't understand is the XFL, the AAF, the UFL, and other leagues have had far better, more exciting rules for the kickoffs for a while now. But for some reason, every 5 years, the NFL introduces a new rule that tries to fix it, and it just always makes it worse. So I fear that this might be the same situation where it just takes away one of the few remaining interesting elements of the kickoff. Now, if you ask me what my preferred implementation of it is for the kickoffs, I would say go for a rule that was proposed last year, which got, I think, only 2 owners approving, which was kickoffs are just 4th and 12 at your own 30-yard line. You either punt it or you go for it, because punts are genuinely a more exciting play in football. They're full of injuries. They're not entertaining at all anymore. So quit trying to water them down and come up with something better.
Welcome to Roger Goodell's NFL, where everything is stupid, and he's just essentially taking the shotgun approach to fixing NFL of just throwing rules at the wall and hoping that something works out. How many rules has he put in place and then immediately revoked? So many. It's been, I've never seen a commissioner remove as many of his own rules that he made as Roger Goodell. The whole cleats rule, the no celebration rule, the pass interference review. There's been so many during his tenure. And you just think they would come to a realization, the owners would realize, I'm not sure this guy knows what he's doing. He's clearly a businessman, and he's good at it. The NFL has grown under Roger Goodell, but does he know the good game of football well enough to be in this place of power? Probably not.
We should bring back the no celebration rule. Get a touchdown, quietly shake someone's hand, walk back like a respectful person. None of this having fun.
Oh, man.
So stupid.
I mean, I could probably appreciate a little bit more experimentation if he was doing it well, but he's just like you said, just throwing rules at the wall, and the wrong wall, in my opinion. You have these leagues that are willing to partner with you and sort of act like minor league, like rules experimentation areas. They are willing to try out these things to improve the game of football, where you don't necessarily have to put that into the NFL and risk like worsening the product even for a single season. So if you're gonna like just guess at what might help, guess where it matters less.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up next, is the fact that that's something that the MLB, surprisingly, Rob Manfred, and the NBA does well, is that when they have new rules ideas or changes to the game, they chuck it at essentially the leagues that don't really matter. No one cares if the rules get messed with at the minor league level or the G League level, and see how it goes there, see how the players like it. And then if they like it enough, if it works out, then you implement it at the professional level where lots of money is being thrown around, where it actually matters. But that would make too much sense for Roger Goodell's little pea brain. So, all right. Well, I just gave Rob Manfred a compliment, so obviously I now have to roast him.
Yeah.
The MLB jerseys this season are disgusting. It is atrocious. Fanatics should be ashamed of themselves. Rob Manfred should be ashamed of the fact that him and his office allowed these to come out. In this photo here, right half of it, if you look at the jerseys up above, those were the jerseys from last season. The names on them look nice, great, flat, normal naming, right? You look at the jerseys on the bottom here, for whatever reason, Fanatics made the font smaller and rainbowed the name. So that you can't see it here, but like there's a MLB player named Isaiah Connor Falefa. His last name on these jerseys literally goes from the middle of the number, rainbows up and over to the other side on the middle of the number. You cannot read his last name because it is so curved.
Wait, so they don't like change the angle of the curve based on the length of the name?
No.
Like it's always the same angle?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's horrible. And then if you look on the left, if you notice here, looking at this poor man's crotch region, the pants are see-through.
Yeah, I saw this one.
Like, there is nothing left to the imagination with these jerseys, and it's just because Fanatics seeped out. They are so low quality. Fans who have been buying the replica jerseys have been saying that they are absolutely horrible. Apparently, the replica jerseys have like those ironed on patches for the numbers and stuff. They're no longer stitched. They're like iron on those like stupid like plasticky things. So it's absolutely horrible. And if the MLB has any self-respect at all for the fans, for players, they'll shut down this contract with Fanatics. They'll remove these jerseys and go tell Nike, try again. Like produce them yourself. Like don't outsource to Fanatics, who clearly can't do this. Especially like this is like if this was in the minor leagues, again, fine, whatever. No one's buying a minor league baseball jersey, and if you are, I'm sorry. But at the MLB level, literally $1 billion sports league, this can't happen. It's just absolutely atrocious. And the fact that, and Rob Manfred, the beautiful thing is he came out a couple of weeks ago when this controversy first started, and he's like, yeah, I signed off on this. It's like, oh, so you're asking to be fired. Okay. Yeah. So it's just completely incompetent by everybody involved with this. So far, the only players people have noticed, the only players who have said, oh, the jerseys are fine, are the players that have Nike deals and are probably required to say that the jerseys are okay. So essentially, no one likes them. They're horrible. Yeah. So it needs to be fixed, because I was thinking about buying a Mets jersey this year because their City Connect is coming out. I'm not going to buy one if they're like this. It's just not. It's not worth it.
I saw someone post about the see-through pants. I was like, this is a great opportunity for a player to just put a sponsor on their underwear. Like, there's nothing that the league can do. Like, he's wearing pants.
Oh, man. I'll tell you that the one thing, like the worst thing about these pants, it means more rain delays. Because the moment that any water gets on them, they're clear in the stadium.
Yeah. I will say, if the plan is you're hoping to have female viewership go up, this will probably work. But at the cost of your entire male audience.
Not all of it.
All right. Well, one final thing. Screw Rod Manfred. I can't wait for that dumbass to retire.
Oh, also, we're talking about jerseys. One minor toast. Way to go, Clippers, and finally changing your dog shit logo to something not just letters.
Yeah.
It is now middle of the pack in the NBA, which is a huge improvement.
It is now an okay logo.
Nice.
And that's fantastic for the Clippers.
Yeah. Congratulations.
A little C and it has a boat in it. It's kind of nice.
Like a little compass, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Clippers a shit. But you didn't know that till now.
Well,
over the microphone, it sounded like the Clippers are shit. I'm like, yeah.
As an organization, not as a team right now, they're looking pretty good.
True. They have fallen off a lot since the All-Star break. They were like a game back from the top, and now they're 4.
All right. Now we can move on.
All right. Now going over to our probably regular segment here that we have going on until the draft, NFL prospect scouting. And we're going to start out with Micah. Micah, who did you scout this week?
I scouted Johnny Wilson.
What a name.
From Florida State. I kind of just did the inverse of my prospect last episode where I picked a running back who's pretty small for that position and undersized. This time, I'm going with a big wide receiver. Dude is 6'7", 237 pounds. Dude's a unit.
Yeah, that's huge for wide receiver.
Yeah.
Dude is 2 units.
But this is someone who's like projected to be in the top 10, probably closer to the 10 range, probably a mid-day 2 draft. But I could see easily moving up if a team already has 1 or 2 like smaller to like regular size wide receivers and just kind of need a tank who can get the ball. And this is also someone with his size can easily get some yards after the play pretty easily and would be hard to take down for a lot of defenses. Obviously, with that size does come weaknesses in that position, not quite as agile or flexible in your routes and all this stuff. Looked like a pretty solid receiver, but someone who I think, given the right system and if he can, like, damn it, what's the word? If he can play into his size well, can be a major threat in this league and be someone who's a pain for defenses to control and cover.
I like it.
I like it. I really wanted to like scout your guys' prospects, but I barely had enough brain power for my own this week. I have COVID, everybody. It's still real and it still sucks. Stay safe.
Nah, YOLO. You will. I agree. I looked and I did have the time and the brain power, so second Jonathan, to look into your guy. Sadly, Jonathan didn't put his guy in enough time for me to do anything. But Johnny Wilson, I agree. I think a team who already has like a good 1-2 and is willing to like kind of take not a risk, but like a flyer on a guy who needs some time to develop, just some time to kind of learn at the NFL level, he'll be great for a team like that. And so teams should take the risk, especially on a day 2 pick. Like, what do you got to lose? All right, Jonathan, time for you to use that minimal brain power. Who did you scout this week?
I went for somebody. For those of you who don't know, the draft combine was this week. Great event, always. And I went for somebody who was probably one of the biggest risers during the draft combine. I have him as the number 6 ESPN running back on their big board. But this has not been updated since the combine. I'm expecting he will at least cut that in half because he put on an impressive showing. He's undersized for a running back, which was one of his main concerns going into this, but he measured decently well at the combine, still a little bit short, but 210 pounds, which is respectable. And then he tested incredibly well. For those of you who know what the RAS is, relative athletic score, he got a 9.82 on that out of a possible 10, basically pegging him as an absolutely elite athlete. He was the 3rd best in the broad jump amongst draftable running backs, and he had an excellent 40 time of 4.38, which are just great numbers all around. Really like strong athleticism, high end top speed, good burst speed as well. And then you look at like his actual running form, very like compact and controlled, which is something that I really like look for in a running back. He is a nose down runner that hits holes incredibly quickly, maintains a solid base through contact, is not necessarily big enough or strong enough to break through a lot of tackles, at least not more than like the top prospect in the class in many people's mind, Jonathan Brooks. He'll break through more tackles than Jalen Wright, but he will maintain his base enough to at least gain you a couple of extra yards through contact. Just a great mix of speed and fortitude. When he breaks away, he's dangerous. And he averaged 6.2 yards per carry over the last 2 seasons, which is a great mark. I think that number 6 is definitely too low. I think it was even too low for the pre-combine ranking, but he will be a big riser. I might say I think he's my number 2 running back on the board. So, hey now.
Everybody, please welcome future Green Bay Packer Jalen Wright. Let's go. You didn't put him in here, Jonathan, but luckily I know about this guy. And yeah, I like him a lot too. I seriously do hope, because I think he probably will be around still in the 2nd round. I would be all for the Green Bay Packers spending a 2nd round pick on this guy to replace A.J. Dillon, because he's likely leaving because they just re-signed Aaron Jones. Dillon wants to go be a starting running back somewhere. And having this man as the backup to Aaron Jones, mother of God, that would make me so unbelievably happy. And I'm sure Jordan Love would be able to use this man a lot. So, but with that said, any NFL team would be lucky to have this guy. He looks phenomenal. All right. I'm the only one that did a defensive prospect, apparently. This week, I scouted DJ James, cornerback out of Auburn. 23 years old, so full-timer at the college level. Start off with his weaknesses, and he doesn't have many, surprisingly. He is on the smaller side for a corner at 6 foot, 170 pounds, kind of a little guy for a cornerback. And due to that, there is a good chance that he won't be able to cover the bigger wide receivers of the NFL. Putting him in a matchup against DK Metcalf would be probably a big mistake. DK would wreck this man's life at that size. Other weakness he has is that he does, as a lot of college cornerbacks do, admittedly, have a tendency to get grabby, and that could get him into a lot of PI trouble at the NFL level. So that's definitely something that they're going to have to coach out of him. But going over the strengths, he does a great job of tracking the ball and has natural ball skills for forcing turnovers, could become something of a ball hawk at the NFL level. And looking at his tape and stuff, and just from interviews with coaches, he could have had way more interceptions at the collegiate level if quarterbacks didn't actively target other receivers to avoid him in coverage. great at backpedaling and has quick hips to turn and run in coverage, which is very important. Has very good change of direction ability, explosive speed to run with receivers and cover out of position, and then has great length and leaping ability too. So can get up and get into those contested catch situations. Again, though, probably not against someone like DK Metcalf, the big guys of the NFL, but smaller guys, he's absolutely there and can battle them. And then finally, has very good vision, especially in zone coverage, and does a great job of identifying routes. So right now, I think he's slated as the 12th or 13th cornerback, and that's probably about right, I would say, especially with that size situation. But I see him going probably somewhere in the third round, probably late third, just because corners are always a hard position to evaluate because they're so important. It's hard to take a risk, but he's a guy that I think if there's a team who has a young defense and is willing to let their defense develop a little bit, he'd be absolutely perfect for him. So,
yeah. I'm doing some speed scouting right now.
Well, that's better. I thought that you just weren't paying attention at all.
He looks pretty good. Like you said, probably stronger in zone coverage. Like really good at adjusting. Like when he's to the different routes present. Not super strong in press man. And then at his size, it sort of limits the options for an NFL team. You often see like smaller corners sort of fit into that nickel position, and nickel packages just aren't run quite as frequently. I think the Broncos actually led the league in nickel in one of the 2 recent years with like 40 to 60%. So it's just not a very common position to have a lot on the field, but it's still an important one. So a team that has that need could probably look to fill it in him.
Now over to a topic that's been pretty hot this week on Twitter and every single NBA podcast and sports talk show is the question around, are NBA offenses out of control? Has NBA offense just gone too far? You have teams like the Boston Celtics this season who are scoring like 140 points per game. It seems like so many. I mean, how many games have we seen this year where a team has scored over 140 or even 150? It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's not that players aren't playing defense. It's just become very hard. And like just kind of the general mindset seems to be in the NBA that just defense isn't as important. Like players seem to be more interested in putting in their effort and their energy on the offensive side of the ball. And there's reasons to that. But in your guys' opinion, should Adam Silver and the NBA do something about this? Should they change rules? Should they do something to try and make defense more relevant in the NBA?
I do think there's an adjustment to be made. I just recently read a fantastic book called Blood in the Garden by Chris Herring. It's about the 90s New York Knicks and that entire time period, all of their playoff appearances, and additionally like deep dives into all the coaches like Pat Riley, Van Gundy, all of the players and what they were going through. Really interesting, really great book. Chris Herring, check it out. Fantastic. But near the end of the book, what they were talking about was in that era of the Knicks and the Bulls and the Pistons and the Pacers, who were just playing such violent defense. Like their whole shtick was no one's going to drive into the paint and score on us. Their teammates like breaking each other's noses in practice, going so hard. And David Stern, the commissioner at the time, was like, okay, we can't be having all of these brawls and everything. So set up rules that hindered defense and that physicality. Obviously, you take what happened then in the 90s up to this point, and it is just shifted way too far that there needs to be something to get it kind of back to a nice equilibrium. Because like, I don't think we should go all the way back to the 90s. That was an insane time. We cannot have that. But something that just allows players to defend harder and stronger without just getting calls anytime they touch someone. Like, I do think there needs to be an adjustment. I don't know how to make rules that do that, but there needs to be something because it is out of hand.
Yeah.
I think that a video that I would really recommend everyone go watch is by Thinking Basketball. It's called How the NBA Continues to Make Scoring Easier. He posted it a little bit over a year ago, and it just sort of it deep dives into the difference in every era in sort of the way that things are called, from like the 80s, where like literally your offhand as the dribbler couldn't be making contact with the defender because that was considered to be like artificially creating space and cheating, to today where like if the defender is naturally in your way, that's a penalty on the defender. And so he takes a mostly positive approach, outlook on it. In all honesty, talks a lot about how the game has grown and how we have seen a lot of like more excitement in the league, and how offense is genuinely just really good for basketball. But at the same time, he does take some critical notes with it and how we may have overstepped our bounds. I do also think, though, that this year in particular, because like you look at the difference between this year and last year, and if anything, they almost made a couple of rule changes to try and shift slightly back with like the anti-flopping things, or you look a couple of years back even with the now technical foul for an offensive player like kicking out their legs to try and draw a foul. These are good changes that we're seeing, and we're still seeing offensive efficiency rise. I sort of suspect that one of the main things that caused that specifically this year is the 65 game minimum that's forcing players to play a lot more games if they want to get more contracts. And if you cannot rest by sitting out of a game, you'll rest by playing less intensely on defense. So I feel like this year we might actually see the biggest discrepancy that we've seen maybe ever between the defensive effort that we see in the regular season versus the defensive efforts that we see in the postseason. So that's something I'm going to be keeping an active eye on throughout this year, but maybe just one of those unintended negative side effects of what probably was a good rule, but can lead to some bad things.
Yeah. And this, so like you said, a lot of people have been talking about this, and there are a couple of things that I feel like I've seen a couple of people mention, but hasn't been focused on, that I feel like are bigger culprits than what people give them credit for. One is the fact that you have guys like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, guys who 3 seconds into the shot clock walk across the line, pop a three, drain it. That puts you in a place where you have all that leftover time now available for the other team to go score. Whereas like in the 90s or early 2000s, teams were a lot more methodical. Like it was, you would take up the majority of the shot clock to score a basket, whether that was a three or the two. You'd set up your offense, you'd run it out, you'd waste some time on the clock. Again, now you have Dame who just comes down and is like, heat check and drains a three quickly, and you have all that time left over. I think another culprit is also in that same vein, the 14-second reset of the shot clock rather than the 24. I think with the 14-second shot clock, teams are forced to then put up shots and score quicker off of a rebound than they were before. Versus when you have the 24-second shot clock, that's an additional 10 seconds that teams would use. Teams would essentially reset and run a full another play on the floor. And sure, 10 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but when you then consider the fact that probably 50% of the plays in the NBA are off of a rebound, or not 50%, but like that does add up over the course of the game, and that allows more time for people to score. So I think those things also contribute to the fact of why we've seen our offensive numbers increase. It's just, there's just more time available for scoring than there was before. And another person that can be blamed for that is Mike D'Antoni, right? The whole 8-second offense, the mindset of like, let's get down, put up a shot as quick as possible. Like, again, in the 90s, that wasn't the mindset. Even Michael Jordan wouldn't run down court and just, I'm going to take the ball and just dunk it 8 seconds into the shot clock. Like, you would set up the offense, you would run everything, you would use the 24 seconds. And that's just not the mindset nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, much faster pace of play for sure, which definitely goes into that.
Yeah. But it is crazy to look at, like, right now. It's cool to see Shai, who as a star guard is playing very defensively and is leading the league in steals right now, which is awesome to see. But it's still funny to take into consideration the fact that like Shai, in comparison to like Clyde Drexler or Gary Payton, looks like a mediocre defender.
Yeah. I was looking at the Defensive Player of the Year candidates this year is almost like disappointing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like even like Giannis is a good defender, but if you took Giannis's defensive numbers in the '90s, Giannis would never win a DPOY ever. Like he probably wouldn't even be top 5. And it's just that shift. And that's nothing against Giannis, because again, he's doing kind of the best with what he has. But
yeah. I mean, there are also some other rules that have been put in place recently that has helped offenses that are really good changes, like getting rid of take fouls that just stop play and like allow offenses to score more, not allowing just blatant hacking of players, which that one still kind of pisses me off. If you're in the NBA, learn how to shoot your free throws. Don't be caught by rules. But the fast break one for sure was a great change.
Yeah.
Which again helps offenses, which helps the league.
Yeah. So now we're going to jump into a new segment here, What's More Likely? And if any of you have watched the Rich Eisen show, yes, I did steal this from his show, but it's a fun segment. I really like it. So I thought it'd be fun to do it here. Jonathan and I have both created some topics, so we're going to go back and forth a little bit. We'll start with one of mine. So Micah, Jonathan, what do you guys think? What's more likely? Damian Lillard wins his first career ring this season, or James Harden does? So essentially Clippers or Bucks, but it's just more fun to frame it as a first ring thing.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, you're not allowed to say it doesn't matter because the Nuggets are going to win. You have to pick one.
No, I know. I mean, like neither of these two would be in my top 2 choices to win the chip this year. But if I'm choosing between these two, it's going to be the Bucks. I think that the Bucks have an easier path to the finals. They do have to go through Boston, but the Clippers would also have to go through Boston in the finals. So I don't think that that's necessarily the right comparison. But past the Celtics, I don't really know who challenges the Bucks all that much. The Cavaliers have a good shot, but they're a little bit young and inexperienced still. The Knicks, same story. Whereas in the West, like the Clippers will have to go through the reigning champions and the Nuggets. They'll have to go through the Suns. They'll have to go through the Lakers. They'll have to go through the Timberwolves and Thunder, who are both looking really solid right now. Like it's just a completely different environment out West, I feel like. And for mainly that reason, I think it favors the Bucks. But even beyond that, I honestly probably say that the Bucks have the more complete team still. So,
yeah, I think I would agree. I think the Clippers are just scary with the amount of talent that they have in those main 4 guys. But just in general, as a team, I do think the Bucks are better, especially with how Doc Rivers has improved their defense. Like that was the biggest question, and I do still think it's a concern. Just having Dame having to guard one of the main players in the playoffs, but I think that's fixed it enough. And Harden, Kawhi, Paul George are all just so volatile with either how well they perform in the playoffs or just health in general, that going through 4 series that, especially in the West, are all going to be tough no matter who you match up with. I do think the Bucks just have an easier path to get there.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you guys. I think that was my thought going into this, is that I'd probably take the Bucks right now, and probably purely because of the fact that Eastern Conference is easier. Like realistically, the Celtics are the main team I'd worry about for them, whereas the Clippers, it's like literally every team they would face. it's going to be a tough matchup. So, and then also I think just in my heart, I so badly want Dame to win a ring, even though it wouldn't be with the Blazers. Homie deserves it. So, all right, Jonathan, over to you for your first one.
Yeah. So, breaking news this morning: Russell Wilson was told by the Denver Broncos that they will be cutting him on March 12th. So he's heading to a new team. What's more likely, that Russell Wilson takes a new team to the playoffs next year, or that he doesn't start all 17 games, that he either doesn't gain the job to start the season or he loses it at some point?
It's so tough because it really just comes down to, I feel like, what team he winds up going to. I think initial reaction would probably be that he doesn't start 17 games, like unless he just has an absolute renaissance here. Because I feel like most teams that he would go to, he'd probably just be a stopgap in between them getting a younger quarterback. Like if he goes to the Steelers, like a lot of people are predicting, the Steelers don't have a good enough pick this year to take a quarterback that would be worth taking really over Kenny Pickett. So you could acquire Russell Wilson, give it 2 years, whatever, until Mike Tomlin decides that he doesn't want to make the playoffs anymore, and and have a good enough pick to take a quarterback. So I think that, yeah, I just don't know what team he would go to where I could see him getting to the playoffs. I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think I would lean more towards him taking a new team to the playoffs, just because Russ feels like someone who wants to play right now and doesn't want to just be on the bench for a team. I don't think he's going to join a team where he doesn't get to play at all during the season. And not that he can still take a mediocre team to the playoffs, but I think that's more likely for what he would want to try to do than just join a good team and sit.
Yeah, I agree. He'll probably aim to start all 17. And I think that Steelers sound the most likely right now based on what everyone's hearing. And I think he has a decent chance of taking them to the playoffs because they were there this year with Pickett. Doesn't seem like he's that much of a downgrade, but he's also sort of a tough person to coach right now with his sort of declining talent in the run game, his mostly one-dimensional arm right now. So I don't know where I fall on this one. Probably leans slightly closer to playoffs, but it, like you said, depends on where he winds up.
Yeah, I mean, if at the end of the day, Atlanta just becomes super desperate and just needs a quarterback because they just can't mentally withstand the idea of starting Desmond Ridder for another season, I could fully see him playing 13 games. They get eliminated from playoffs and the Falcons go, okay, let's just try and see what we have in whatever young quarterback we have, and him not starting the rest. So, all right. Good one, Jonathan. I like it. All right, for my next one, Micah, Jonathan, what's more likely? The New England Patriots wind up with the first overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, or the Carolina Panthers do?
Go ahead.
How much does Bill Belichick matter is this question? Because the Panthers have so few assets. I don't think that Bryce Young, even if he elevates his game, will be able to elevate this team very much at all. Just because there's not much of a team there. And so it's hard to bet against the lack of talent on the Panthers getting the first overall. But at the same time, the Patriots have been declining rapidly, and now they've lost who is possibly the best coach of all time. So I think I still go Panthers here, though. I still go Panthers.
Yeah. I have no idea. I'm just going to say it for spite of the Patriots that it'll be them, but they're horrible teams. Who the hell knows?
The poor Panthers don't even own their own first-round pick this year.
I mean, I will say I looked into both of them. The Panthers do have an easier schedule though than the Patriots because they're in the NFC South. So like in terms of opportunities to beat crappy teams, the Panthers have far more of those. The poor Patriots have to play the Dolphins twice, the Bills twice, the Jets, hopefully with Aaron Rodgers twice.
Yeah.
Like that's more than likely 6 losses right there. Especially if you're rolling out with Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi again. So it's going to be a tight race. I know the team that I thought about putting in this one was the Cardinals, but I think with Kyler back for a full season, I'm not quite sure I see the Cardinals totally battling for that bottom of the league position like they were this year.
Yeah, the only way I see that is if they move on from Kyler. I don't think that Kyler's necessarily the guy that elevates them to playoff or contention, but he's also enough to keep them out of the 101.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Jonathan, time for another one of yours.
All right. So, speaking of Russell Wilson moving on, the Broncos are in a tough spot now. What do you think is more likely? That the Broncos don't make the playoffs for at least 5 more years, or that Las Vegas does not make the playoffs for at least 5 more years?
I'd pick the Broncos for this one. I don't know what, like, to be honest, even with the Saints, I'm never sure. Like, I felt that Sean Payton was like a phenomenal coach. He's good. Absolutely. Like, he's a good coach. But like, they won 1 Super Bowl in New Orleans. It's not like he was some revolutionary, just all-time great coach. And I think right now, with the fact that the Broncos are essentially just like selling the farm, they also they put themselves in a tough position this year because they played well enough to not get a good enough pick to go and get the quarterback to replace Russell Wilson. But now you're getting rid of Russell Wilson, so you're either going to have to settle for a guy like Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. or JJ McCarthy, or you go grab some guy off of free agency. Maybe you are able to lure Kirk Cousins to Denver. But regardless, I just don't see them this season being able to grab their quarterback of the future. And the Raiders are in a similar spot, but like the Raiders haven't just started completely tearing down their team yet, like the Broncos began doing. And so I don't know. They're both dumpster fire organizations at the moment, but I just don't see. I feel like the Broncos' position right now is just a tough one to try and turn around from at the moment. Whereas I feel like the Raiders have already started to turn that corner a little bit by moving off of Derek Carr and bringing back Antonio Pierce and like embracing the culture and like starting to build up the culture of their organization, where it seems like some people still hate Sean Payton. So
yeah, I would agree. And again, not fully having deep understanding of both of these organizations and where they're at completely, just how much Denver gave up for Russell Wilson just to drop him. That hurts. But like Evan was saying, Raiders have already kind of started to turn a corner, and this feels like the very start of just the end of the Broncos. So I feel like it's more likely for the Raiders to make playoffs, but it'll be a tough road for both of them for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. I think that the Broncos do have the better coach. I think that they have the better ownership group. And I even might go so far as to say they have the better present roster, but the Broncos is just very thin and not a ton of potential. And you add that to $85 million in dead cap from just Russell Wilson, which is bigger than the second and third highest dead caps combined. So combined with, for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, they've given up 3 firsts, 3 seconds, a couple of players, and a whole lot of money. So it's just a lot of hurdles to overcome, and they kind of dug themselves into a deep pit that is going to be very difficult to get out of. So I probably think that they are more likely to miss playoffs for 5 years.
God, I love being a Packers fan. We traded one of the best quarterbacks ever and we got better. It's so beautiful. All right. For my next one, some preferencing here. We got two guys who are upcoming young talent in the league going head to head. So, out of curiosity to the two of you, who makes an NBA all NBA first team first? Paolo Banchero or Victor Wembanyama?
Wemby. I mean, what the guy is doing is insane. He is breaking stats right now that are absurd for anyone, much less a rookie. Like any game, he could get a 5x5, which is absurd. I just think the amount of talent that he has as a rookie, and Paolo's great. I love Paolo. But I think Victor's especially going to have a lot more focus on him just from the league in general, and as well as being really the only good player on the Spurs right now. No offense to Vassell, but it's only Victor Wembanyama. And what he's doing this season, what I think he's going to continue to do, I don't think it's really going to be that long until he makes it, barring an injury, which is a scary, susceptible thing that he could occur with his size and weight. But I think Wemby's got it.
I mean, he's number 2 in Defensive Player of the Year ratings this year. And you look at his stats, the only reason he's not number 1 is because he's on the Spurs. Like, you don't want the worst team in your conference to have the Defensive Player of the Year. And he's more than likely going to make an All-NBA team this year. And I think the main thing that would have made me hesitant to say Wemby over Banchero would be that Wemby's a center, except now all NBA teams are positionless. So that's not even a barrier anymore. No. So I honestly sort of expect that next season he might get first team. He's on a really strong trajectory right now.
It's fair. And now the twist to this, because I thought about doing this, but I was like, let's get all three of these guys in here. What if I change this to Paolo versus Chet Holmgren? Who are you going with?
That one's a lot tougher.
I gave you the easy one up front, but now I'll give it to you up front because I haven't talked yet. I'd probably go with Paolo, simply because they're both rising teams. Obviously, the Thunder are much better than the Magic, but Paolo Banchero is the best guy on the Magic, and all NBA teams, similar to MVP, people do take that into consideration a bit, as well as how good your team is also and how you elevate your team. Paolo's the best guy on the Magic, whereas Chet is behind Shai on the Thunder. That's just the truth.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And then
Paolo, it is rare to get 2 on the first team.
Yeah, exactly. And Paolo also, just within the last, couple of weeks, the dude has just been out of his mind. Playing so well. And if he can keep that up, I see Paolo taking it over Chet in that race.
Yeah, I can see Paolo too, especially was already great as a rookie, and the steps that he's taken this year have been really, really good. He's a fun player to watch. I love Chet. He's really good. And I think it's a lot stronger of a defender. But like you said, getting not just 2 guys from the same team, 2 guys from the Oklahoma City Thunder to make All-NBA first team does not seem likely. And I feel like Shai can do it this season easily. Yeah, Shai can do it. But it would take a lot longer for Chet to do it than Paolo, I think.
I'm also not certain either of them ever will, if I'm being honest. First team is a really hard honor to reach, and historically the worst players to ever get the honor did so because it was not positionless. you had a couple of weird seasons where like centers that were just during that sort of the dead period of centers, you were getting like DeAndre Jordan got a first team bid. Which nothing against the guy. He's had a great career, but
I was going to say, to be fair, DeAndre Jordan in his prime
he was nice.
Really good.
He was really good. But like
helped having CP3
his prime, like his prime form would not be all NBA first team a decade earlier or a decade later.
For sure.
So you look at Paolo Banchero and Chet Holmgren, both really like great potential, but I'm not sure they're necessarily on first team trajectories at the moment. But if I had to pick one for the same reasons as you, probably Paolo.
Well, as an owner of Paolo Banchero and fantasy, I sure as hell hope you're wrong. All right, Jonathan, back over to you.
All right, so Micah just toasted the Indiana Fever for getting the 101. Fun fact, though, the Los Angeles Sparks own the 102, the 104, and the 108 in next year's draft, and started with a better record. So the question here is really, what's more likely, that Indiana Fever on the back of Caitlin Clark makes playoffs next season, or that the Los Angeles Sparks on the backs of a just massive haul of draft capital make the playoffs next season?
The Fever. I think, like, and nothing against the WNBA or women's college basketball, but like, I feel like when you look at the WNBA draft, usually each draft you can count on one person becoming like a star. Like if you look back through WNBA drafts, it really doesn't happen often that you wind up having two girls come out of it being like star WNBA players. It's usually the 101 or the 102 becomes phenomenal, and all the rest are like solid, but and unless Caitlin Clark becomes one of the biggest draft busts in history, Caitlin Clark is going to be that star from this draft. And she can absolutely carry the Fever, like Micah was mentioning, because they had the 101 last year also. They've gotten some good talent as well. And I think they're just, you kind of look at them, I feel like they're that one piece away. And Caitlin Clark is a hell of a piece to add. So,
yeah. I would agree with the Fever, especially because the Sparks are losing Ogwumike, who was their best player last season. Mm-hmm. But also, like, this WNBA draft feels a lot similar to this most recent NBA draft, where there is one clear and away number one pick. No one's touching it. It's not even close. But a lot of really good other picks. Like, there's a lot of talent going into this draft that will be incredibly beneficial for the Sparks. But I don't see any way Caitlin Clark isn't the rookie of the year this season. They just had the last rookie of the year. I think those two alone are going to be enough. But I think as long as the Sparks don't really mess up this draft, they should also be good, really good in a few years. But Caitlin Clark is something else. Yeah, and I think she's going to take them to the playoffs first.
She's really, really talented. And I do think that, like, the main point of this question, I do feel like it was a little bit obvious, like, that the Fever would be the better team here. And I also sort of just wanted to highlight in that just how talented she is. But on top of that, like, the Fever have an up-and-coming roster. They're pretty young. Aaliyah Boston, last year, Rookie of the Year. Then you have Nalissa Smith, who was in her second year last year. Those are the two best players on the Fever, both very young. And also, they play complementary positions to Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston as a sort of power forward center, and Nalissa Smith as just another forward. So being able to slot in like a very talented guard and fill out your roster is going to do a lot of wonders for them, I think.
Yeah. Cool. All right. For my next one, this is a deep quarterback draft in the NFL. A lot of names going out there. No one exactly knows how many guys are going to be taken in the first round because there are so many teams that need quarterbacks. It's insane. You have guys that should be going in the second that might go into the first round. We'll see. But for this one, what's more likely? Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy to be drafted before the other?
Man, I wish you didn't put like JJ McCarthy as the guy, because he is the most confusing prospect at quarterback we've had in forever.
That's exactly why I picked him.
Because I mean, he's just so difficult to analyze with a little bit less play time, and then like operating in an offense that was largely focused on like the short and intermediate game. Like he threw a whole lot of screen passes, a whole lot of 6-yard passes during that championship game. And yet, like you can't necessarily use the lack of like a deep game in the playbook as a knock against the quarterback, because he has shown on many of the occasions where he's been granted the opportunity to throw deep that he has the talent to do so. And I think that like his sort of showing in the combine this year, combined with just the excitement around sort of the unknown and the potential for him, there's going to be enough teams that value McCarthy much higher than Bo Nix that one of those teams will wind up with him before Bo Nix goes off the board.
Bo Nix was UW, right?
Oregon. Michael Penix Jr. was UW.
That's right. I'm going Bo Nix then.
Again, it's tough. They're pretty even. I would probably pick Bo Nix just because I think when you look at just overall potential, I think between his running ability, just his dynamicism as an athlete versus JJ McCarthy, I think Bo is just also comes across as more mature. I mean, he's like 50 years old. So, but, and I also think just looking at it, not that Michigan's wasn't sophisticated, but as Jonathan mentioned, like from a quarterback perspective, Michigan's offense was one that was fairly simple to run, and the Michigan offense wasn't banking on JJ McCarthy to be like the focal point of the offense. Whereas Oregon, I feel like Bo Nix was kind of the central cog, and teams can look at that and go, okay, this is a guy who has already taken the responsibility of being the guy for a team and having the offense run through him and being the focal point. And for a lot of teams, that is very important because that's what you need out of a quarterback if you're going to make the playoffs, if you're going to win anything. So to me, and it will probably be like Bo Nix will go like early second round and JJ McCarthy will probably go like 3 picks later. Like they're going to be so close. It probably, it won't be a big difference, but.
I think that's why I went for McCarthy though, is because we just know a lot more about Bo Nix, which means that like our draft evaluation is probably fairly apt. A lot of people are pegging him as early second round, but JJ McCarthy is all over the board, and all over the board means somebody likes him as a first round pick. So
time will tell. All right, Jonathan, over to you for your last one.
All right. So LeBron scored 40K. By the way, that's just regular season. He's 48K overall, which is insane. So what's more likely, that any active player in today's NBA other than LeBron reaches 40,000 points in their career, or it never, ever happens again?
You want to go for it? Or you want me to take it first?
You can take it.
I'm going to say it never happens again. I think the fact that you combine the fact that LeBron was a straight out high school NBA player, which literally can't happen nowadays. It's not allowed. And the fact that he is this freak who is still doing this at 40 years old.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen NBA players play till 40. Vince Carter, Ray Allen, I think, or at least close to 40. The fact that LeBron is still dunking over people at 40 years old is, I'm pretty sure Jesus Christ himself came down and tapped LeBron on the forehead and said, I bless you. Like, physically, this is just insanity. And I know with modern, physical therapy and medicine and stuff, you can extend your career, but not like this. LeBron is just different. And so this is just purely from a longevity perspective. Like, I think there will be other people that come into the league and are just as good of scorers as LeBron. I mean, Kevin Durant is one of them right now. And some people argue that Kevin Durant's an even better scorer than LeBron was at his peak. That's a different debate. But just that longevity is absolutely insane. So I think this will be a record that kind of stands the test of time. I'm not sure I see anyone beating this. So
I think I agree. I don't think it'll ever happen again. If there's any player that can do it, it'll be Luka, who entered the league at 19 and has been phenomenal since he started. But even then, like, he'll have to play at his like current average and pace, play for 22 years at that level doing that. Which, I mean, LeBron has like 20 years of just being incredible from day one and not having any like major injuries that sat him out. So far, Luka's been healthy. Like, if anyone can do it, it's Luka. But that's still just an unbelievable feat that I can't imagine I'll ever see it again.
Yeah. And I feel like the only like shred of hope to anyone there is the fact that LeBron has done a lot of rest management, especially over the past probably 7-8 years at this point, since he was kind of towards the end of his Heat run. Like, he started to realize like, oh, I'm old now. I should probably not play 82 games in a season. So like the fact that he probably take away the, like, he's missing 20 to 30 games a year at the peak of his rest management. Can't do that anymore. So like that gives some hope to the fact that it could happen. Like, if you play 17 years of playing 80 games a season, like, you might be able to do it. Again, you need to score like 34 points per game over 18 straight years to make it happen. So it's like, sure, someone could do it, but the likelihood, it's no way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to rule out that it will never happen ever. But of these two options, I think that is more likely. You look at LeBron's career. I did a little bit of math. He has played 18 full seasons worth of games. So he's not missed enough to like play less than that. Averaging 27.1 points per game throughout that time. If you look at league history, 25 players have ever played for at least 19 seasons. Only 10 have played for 20 seasons. 6 have played for 21. And only Vince Carter has played in 22 seasons. Now, let's say, just for happenstance, you find a player who plays 22 seasons like Vince Carter. Let's say that they play an average of 75 games per season, which is almost 10 more than average.
Yeah, which is a ton.
You would need to average 25 points per game your entire career, even in like your glory, like even in your over the hill days.
Yeah.
Only 13 players have ever averaged 25 points per game over the course of their entire career. LeBron, obviously, one of them, but none of these players have played long enough to have any dream of this record. Most of their careers were much shorter because to get that many points per game, you need to play most of your time in your prime.
Yeah.
It's just an insane statistic that is going to take like advances in medicine and maybe even a 4-point line in order to change. I don't know.
if they add a 4-point line, it will probably become a closer discussion, but I don't see the NBA ever doing that.
No.
So, all right. Good one, Jonathan. All right, next up, both of these guys have been mentioned with being traded eventually from their teams that drafted them. So, what's more likely? Luka Doncic plays his entire career with the Dallas Mavericks, or Trae Young plays his entire career with the Atlanta Hawks?
I would say it's more likely Luka stays with the Mavericks. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Trae Young gets traded in the offseason, honestly. Like Luka can at least lead a team to the playoffs by himself. He's done it. And it seems like Dallas is finally at the point of really trying to get him help with Kyrie and some of the moves that they've made. the Hawks feel like they're kind of doing the opposite. I mean, like they got DeJounte Murray, but like recently traded away John Collins for little to nothing. Just don't really have a good team. And I don't think Trey is good enough that you're going to base your whole franchise on him, whether you have a good team or not. Whereas the only way Luka's leaving is if he demands it or won't sign contracts. I could see Trey just being traded because they want to move on.
I mean, yeah, if you look at it as a team choice more likely, then you're going to see probably Trey go sooner. But I'm not certain that is the more likely outcome here. I'm not sure there's a team outside of the Hawks that values Trey Young more than the Hawks do. And at the same time, it is not legally possible to pay Luka what he's worth. So like for him, there will be a time where it just becomes entirely about like winning and career and legacy, because he does seem to be a pretty driven guy who will care about those things a lot. And if the Mavericks can't bring him to those heights, I don't suspect that he will show any extra loyalty than like Damian Lillard did, and Dame moved on. Like Dame had an incredible amount of loyalty. I don't see Luka exceeding that. And so yeah. I'm not sure either of these guys ends their career with this team. I might say Luka has less chance of doing so.
All right. You're a splitting vote. I think this is the first time.
I think I see Luka as more likely to finish his career with the Mavericks than Trey. I think, again, to a certain degree, I feel like because the Mavs have Dirk Nowitzki behind him, who is like become Luka's mentor and they're like best buddies, and Dirk stuck it out and he won one championship. And like to a certain degree, just like from the mood of Luka Doncic, like, yes, he obviously wants to win a championship. And I think he's going to keep going to the Dallas front office of like, get me some help besides flat earther Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie's been great this season.
But like at the same time, I also wouldn't be surprised if Luka's one of those guys where like he wins a ring and like not necessarily becomes complacent, but like that's good. Like I managed to win an NBA championship. Like that's really hard to do. And I think to a certain degree, I think more players are kind of becoming slightly okay with that to a degree. Like I feel like the era of super teams is fading away. We've talked about this before, but like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be a strategy that a lot of teams seem to be taking anymore. At least teams that are actually being successful.
I don't think that's a player thing though. I think that's like a league rule thing that is trying to avoid that. I don't think there's anyone who has worked hard enough to make it to the NBA who's fine with just winning once and then they can coast the rest of their career. Like to make it in the NBA, you have to be damn competitive and only want to win, or be a brother of a multi-MVP.
I mean, not coast. Like,
yeah,
like, I winning coach, but like,
I exaggerate.
If he wins one ring, I don't think Luke is going to be going to the Mavs year after year, going like, come on, like we need to do something to like fix this, and all that sort of stuff. Like, if Dame had won a ring in Portland, I don't think he would have ever left. Like if Dame had gotten one in Portland, he would have stayed and finished his career in Portland. Like it would be one of those things where it's like, I won a ring for Portland.
Yeah. And
I think Luka, to a certain extent, like I know Dallas has already won a ring. Well, I guess that's over 10 years ago at this point. But like it's a smaller market team. It's a team that is not necessarily seen in the upper echelon of the NBA. And it's kind of a mindset of like, hey, I brought a championship to Dallas.
Yeah.
And you could hang your hat on that. Like Dirk hung his hat on that. He said, I won the Dallas Mavericks a championship essentially by himself. And he was like, and again, he strove to win more, but he didn't spend the rest of his career like oh, this is BS that we've never won another championship. I think he realized, like, okay, the fact that we did it once is crazy.
I think it is also dependent on the time in your career that you win.
That's true.
Like if Luka won this year, like I don't think he's the rest of his years like, yeah, I did it. Like Dirk was near the end of his career when he won. And so, yeah, like I don't remember how old he was when he won, but at that time and that team, it's like, yeah, you're probably not winning another one. Luka better keeps trying if he does it in the next couple of years. But yeah, it does heavily depend on when that happens.
Yeah. Cool. All right, one last one. Both teams, one team very young, up and coming. The other team just simply has their star out. What's more likely, the Memphis Grizzlies or the Houston Rockets will make the postseason next year, 2024-25?
Grizzlies.
Grizzlies.
Yeah. I mean, they're a terrible team this year, but mostly because their two best players, who are both incredible players, are injured for very extended periods of time. So they're going to continue to have the rest of the roster grow, and then they're going to get both of those guys back. And I fully expect them to make the postseason next year. So it's not one of those things where it's like, is it likely? It's expected.
Yeah, as long as Bane and Morant can come back and be healthy.
Steven Adams.
And Steven Adams. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, they got decimated. But I mean, like they were the second or third seed last year. They were very high in the West and then got decimated. Whereas Rockets, if they were in the East, they'd make the playoffs. But like they're a solid team, but just in the West, it's going to take a lot more time for them. Even though they've got great players, they're still way too young. And it's the Grizzlies. This trivia is called...
God.
Jonathan, come back.
I'm back.
Called Name That Teammate.
Shit. My mind's too fuzzy.
What is going to happen is I will show you 4 NBA players, and you will have to name me the player that has played with all of them on regular season teams. We're not talking about all-star, anything stupid like that. Just regular teams. The only reason I specify this is because it was incredibly hard to fact check myself and make sure there was no duplicates, because they were like, oh, they played in the Olympics together. It was like, that's not what I'm trying to do. So just as a rule of thumb, don't guess Ish Smith. Don't guess Jeff Green. I'm nearly positive there's only one player for all of these. But just in case, it's not just some stupid journeyman who went everywhere. There are only 2 mid players, and you'll understand why in a little bit.
Cool.
So like all of my trivia rounds, it will be buzz in as soon as you can. I'll try to account for lag, but if you guess incorrectly, I'll put you on a 5-second clock. And
how many questions?
It's all right here. What was that?
How many questions?
11.
Okay.
So there will be an odd amount. So no chance for tying. And moving on.
It's strange.
Who is that teammate? Has played with Harden, Horford, Luka, and Kevin Love.
Russell Westbrook.
Incorrect.
Buzz. Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving is correct.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, Harden with Brooklyn. His Celtics days with Horford. LeBron championship with Love. And currently with Luka. So Evan is up 1-0. I'm going to make a note of that.
You can grab a piece of paper if you want. Back of the printer.
A pen. Haha. Well, love tattoos.
We come prepared, ladies and gentlemen.
Evan is up 1-0. Moving on. Who is this teammate? has played, again, with Kevin Love, Karl Anthony Towns, D. Rose, and Tobias Harris.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler is correct.
Yeah.
Both D. Rose in Chicago, Cat in Minnesota, currently Kevin Love, Tobias Harris in Philly. It's a tie game, folks. Moving on to the next player. Who is this player? Has played with Jared Allen, Steph Curry, Karl Anthony Towns, and Kobe, rest in peace.
Oh my God, why can't I think of his name? I know exactly who it is.
You want to tell me?
Buzz.
Evan.
D'Angelo Russell.
That is D'Angelo Russell.
He played with Kobe?
Yeah, he was early enough on the Lakers.
He started with the
Holy
Lakers
hell.
and is currently on the Lakers. Spent a tiny bit of time in Golden State and had a great run in Brooklyn before going to Minnesota with Cat.
God, thank God. If Jonathan just had a major brain moment there and remembered, I would have been so mad at myself.
Oh, also, the jerseys that they're wearing in these StatMuse logos are not necessarily who they played with at that time. It's just the one that I pulled.
Cool. Wasn't thinking that anyways.
All right. Moving on to the next player. This player has played with Dame, Jokic, Isaiah Stewart, and PG-13.
So this has got to be a mid guy.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Mason Plumlee.
Incorrect.
Buzz.
Evan.
Will Barton?
Incorrect.
Good guess.
Jonathan, do you know who Isaiah Stewart plays for?
No.
Okay. He has only played for the Detroit Pistons.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. I didn't know who he was either.
He's the guy who tried to kill LeBron.
Oh, now I know who it is.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Malik Beasley.
Incorrect. This is a better player. I can give.
Oh, cool. Buzz. Lance Stevenson.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Paul Millsap.
No.
Sorry.
Fair enough. I could give trajectory of the teams if that would help.
Sure. Jonathan, do you want that as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. Let me double check just to make sure not giving you bad information.
Better play? What?
He's solid.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Contavious Caldwell Pope.
No.
Yeah.
The first teammate that he had was Paul George, and then Jokic, and then Stewart, and then Dame.
Is he currently with Dame? Or
He is not currently with Dame.
Okay.
Huh.
What the hell? Can you give us his current team? Or would that be too obvious?
Current team would be very obvious.
Okay. Dude, what?
Is there any other hint?
Initials? Or is that too obvious too?
Buzz.
Yeah.
Gary Harris? I don't think he ever played with Dame. Yeah.
No, didn't.
Or didn't.
I'm pretty sure the only
He
person
started
who
with
played here is
Jokic. Yeah.
All right. I can give initials if you would like.
I take him, Jonathan.
I think we just wash this question.
But then it could end in a tie.
Yeah, we got to go.
True. All
Fine.
right.
We'll wash it, and then if it comes to a tie, I'll consider something. Jeremy Grant.
Oh, that should have been really obvious. Yeah,
He was in OKC with Paul George. I could have given that.
He went to Detroit after us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got.
That was my thing. I completely forgot that he ever played on the Nuggets.
All right. Well, we just spent so much time on that. Now to continue the trend, this next player has played with Dame, Jokic, Bradley Beal, and Pascal Siakam.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Malik Beasley.
Incorrect.
Who else played with Dame and Jokic?
I've now thought of 5 different people who fit 3 of them.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Mason Plumlee.
Incorrect.
You said better player.
I did not say that for this one. This is one of the mid ones.
Buzz. Will Barton?
This is Will the Thrill Barton.
Damn.
Evan takes a 3-1 lead.
That was one of those guys that matched 3 of them. I didn't know he ever played with Siakam, but I was like, I'll send him.
Yeah, he ended his career in Toronto. And moving on, this next player has played with Dame, Jokic, and LaMelo.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Mason Plumlee.
Now it's Mason Plumlee.
Let's go.
For us. And players want to try it. All right, no more of that.
So when did the mid player show up?
All right, that was a fun trend. For a second, I was thinking of adding Nurkic to it as well. I was like, he's only gone to one other team.
Yeah, so.
But I could have included Beal again.
Yeah.
All right, Evan is up 3-2. Moving on to the next question. Who is this teammate? Has played with Harden, Lance Stevenson, Steven Adams.
Lance will make you dance. Buzz.
Jonathan.
Paul George. That's wrong, though.
It is Paul George.
Oh, yay!
He played with Melo and OKC along with Adams. Obviously,
oh, right. Yeah.
Initial stint with Lance Stevenson, currently with Harden. Jonathan ties it up. Please don't end the tie, you guys. Come up with something real quick. All right. Next player has played with Kyle Lowry, Zach LaVine, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Chris Bosh.
Buzz.
Evan.
DeMar.
That is DeMar DeRozan. Evan goes up 4-3. Played with Lowry and Bosh both in Toronto. Aldridge in San Antonio, currently with
I
LaVine.
feel like the fact that he played with Bosh just shows how old DeRozan is.
Yeah, that's right. All right, moving on. This may be a difficult one, so we might not need to worry about the tie at all. This next player has played alongside CP3, Jason Tatum, Andre Drummond, and KD.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Pass.
Buzz.
Evan.
Blake Griffin.
That is Blake Griffin. Drummond in Detroit after leaving Clippers with CP3, and then just kind of bounced around a little bit with ending his career in Boston, and was on that ridiculous Nets team with all of the old veterans. Evan goes up 5-3. So, Jonathan, you're really going to have to come back here. This next player has played alongside the likes of Kyrie Irving, LaMelo Ball, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Rudy Gobert.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Steven Adams.
Incorrect.
I don't think Steven Adams has played with any of those guys.
That is correct. Almost want to give you a point for that.
I feel like Jonathan should just lose the game right there. Like, that's impressive. Okay, now we're back to good players too. I was about to say Patty Mills for a second. I was like, that's not right.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Gordon Hayward.
My leg!
Yeah, I was about to get there, yeah.
Correct. Ooh, makes it a close game. Up 5-4. There is
one question left.
One left. Evan, please get this right. All right. The next player has played alongside Kristaps Porzingis, Boogie Cousins, Iguodala, and Brook Lopez.
I'm so confused.
Me too.
This is another good player.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Carmelo Anthony.
Incorrect.
I struggle to see that this isn't a repeat and fulfills all the criteria, because I can't quite match 4, but everyone that I can match that is good. Is this a good player?
Yeah. Not a star, but he is a very good.
Buzz.
Jonathan.
Kevin Durant.
Incorrect. I would call him a star.
I was gonna say that's like
Yeah, I know. I was like, maybe he's trying to throw me off, but
dude, what? I feel like maybe this is just me. I feel like Porzingis is throwing me off the most, oddly enough. And then poor Boogie has played with like no one good. Except for the Nuggets.
no, because Porzingis doesn't match that.
Buzz.
Evan.
DeAndre Jordan?
Incorrect.
Okay. Buzz.
Evan.
Drew Holiday?
That is Drew Holiday. Currently with Porzingis, was in with Brook Lopez in Milwaukee. Boogie Cousins along with AD in that New Orleans era, and then started his career in Philly with Andre Iguodala.
Huh.
Thank you, Evan, for not making it a tie game. That is who he play with, or name that teammate, or whatever I named this game.
My brain hurts. That was a good one.
Your brain hurts.
All right, well, now we will wrap things up as always with some Sportsbook Showdown. Micah, we'll start out with you. What is your first bet of the week?
My first bet is for in Tuesday's slate of did I not take a screenshot? Oh, I only got the bottom half. God damn it. Okay. My first bet of the day is
John,
Scotty Scheffler to win the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Tournament starts this Thursday. He's plus 650. I'm putting 2 units on that.
Why would they name an invitational after a beverage?
I don't know.
All right, Jonathan.
My first bet is for the Rising Nuggets to claim the number 1 seed in the West. You still get plus odds on this at plus 135. I'm putting 2 units down.
All right. For my first bet, I'm picking Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks to win National League MVP award. That's plus 1,800, putting the unit down on it. Love Corbin Carroll. Love what the Diamondbacks have going on.
I don't know what app you're using, Jonathan, but my second bet is Denver Nuggets. Oh, that's different. Okay. Dang it. I didn't want to bet on that. All right. I guess Denver Nuggets being the Western Conference winner.
Yay!
Even though that goes against many other bets that I've already placed. Yeah, I meant to do Jonathan's bet. I'm piggybacking on Jonathan's bet. They're going to be the That's what I meant to do.
All right, Jonathan, back to you.
I'm going with the St. Louis Battlehawks to win the United Football League Championship on the back of quarterback A.J. McCarron. Let's go, baby. Caca.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Going over to the MLS, I'm picking the Portland Timbers to win the Western Conference of the MLS. Currently sitting at plus 1,200, putting 2 units down on that. They've only played two games, but I've seen enough, baby. This team is going to win it all. All right, Micah, back to you.
All right. My last pick or bet is underdogs in Tuesday's slate of NBA games. I have Charlotte beating the Magic, Hawks beating the Knicks, and Spurs beating the Rockets. All coming together for plus 2,941, putting my last unit on that.
And for my final one, I'm going with 2 teams that are currently on the inside of playoffs to wind up missing it in the Warriors and the 76ers. That is plus 960, 1 unit down.
Okay. For my last bet, I'm going MLS Week 3 parlay, Portland Timbers, Inter Miami, and New York Red Bulls to win their matchups this weekend. That's plus 887, putting a unit down on it. Go Timbers, baby.
Go Timbers.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we're going to take it out with a spicy take. And Micah.
I gave it last time.
All right, John. Or should I do it? Should I do it?
Do it.
The Indiana Fever are winning next year's WNBA Finals on the back of a historic season from Caitlin Clark. Welcome to the league, Caitlin.
If you had called on me, I would have done a lamer take, which is they're winning one on her rookie contract.
That's not bold enough. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.